In other news about changes, here's something that's pretty unprecedented. Ridley Scott's next movie is unfortunately nothing with xenomorphs, so I'm not as excited about it. My voice just cracked. It's about John Paul Getty's grandson being kidnapped and held for ransom. It's called All the Money in the World. It's got Mark Wahlberg and Michelle Williams. It's like a very kind of serious sort of historical type of thing. It did have Kevin Spacey in it. But if you've been reading the news, Kevin Spacey's under a lot of fire for sexual harassment and just being a Hollywood creepazoid or whatever. Ridley Scott did something kind of insane. He replaced him in the film. He is swapping him out with Christopher Plummer, who's an established actor. Weird part, this movie is out in 43 days from now. It comes out December 22nd.
This is completely insane. I watched the trailer last night, which I guess I had seen before, but it didn't really register. And then I watched it again last night with the context, which, bear in mind, this news broke. That trailer is still available to watch that has Kevin Spacey in it. The version of the movie that you'll see won't have Kevin Spacey in it. So if you live in a weird bubble where you get movie trailers and you didn't read the Kevin Spacey news recently and you saw that trailer and bought tickets, you're going to show up to see a movie that doesn't have that person in it. Now the weird thing about this is that he is, first of all, in tons of makeup and prosthetics. He looks just like, I don't know.
Yeah, he's actually on the poster here.
Looks like Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, they put him in a bunch of aging. We don't have a photo of him to go with that, but I think we might have the trailer. But yeah,
he effectively plays what is sort of like a villain-like character in this movie. Probably the biggest secondary character in the film, if you can say that. And I don't really know how this is going to work. So it's not just like this was shot in a house. This movie was shot all over the world. So you see shots of Kevin Spacey in character walking along the street. You see him in like a desert sequence. You see him all over the place. So this is going to be a little different than just sort of like comping in a new actor.
Well, now here's a counterpoint here. How much of Kevin Spacey's involvement was like, is this like an Anthony Hopkins Silence of the Lambs scenario where he's like a huge part of the movie, but he's only in it for like a few chunks, and the rest of it is Mark Wahlberg and Michelle Williams running around?
It's tough to say.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
it's
obviously,
really
Kevin Spacey's is a huge name for a variety of reasons. Up until the last couple weeks, it was because he was a big actor that everyone wanted to go see. So of course they'd put him kind of front and center. Also, this is the time of movies when Oscar bait comes out, when movies that directors and studios want to try to shoot for Oscars. They release them around Christmas or early part of the year. So I don't know. Also, really weird part. Apparently Ridley Scott wanted Christopher Plummer originally.
Yeah.
And the studios were like, no, you got to get Kevin Spacey. And he's like, okay, fine.
But yeah, back to the Oscar thing. You're onto something there. You effectively have a deadline to make a movie and have it eligible for an Oscar per calendar year. This one is going to have to kind of rush out there to make that happen now that all these changes are going on. And I think you might be onto something with what you said in terms of how minimal his character appearance is in this film. I would say it is for them to even say this completely insane, unprecedented thing of we're going to cut him out of the movie or comp him out of the movie, whatever they're going to do, find and Control F. But this is going to be a very, I actually want to see this movie more than ever now.
Yeah.
For the sheer, I'm not even interested in the story really. Ridley Scott makes cool stuff. But for the sheer, sort of curiosity of how are they going to look, there he is.
Yeah.
How are they going to pull it off?
Well, also, we weren't talking about this movie until this happened.
Yeah.
Obviously we don't cover a lot of serious adult movies because they don't have action figures to go with them. But this is, this wasn't something that was really on my radar, and now it's fascinating.
I think the Kevin Spacey thing, we haven't really talked about it in the show because ultimately, I don't really want to talk about this guy. He's gross, and if the stories are coming out are true, which it sounds like they are because there's dozens of them, then yeah, I don't want to have a platform where we cover this piece of garbage. But that said, the ramifications and spill out that something like this happens in Hollywood, where you look at a movie like this, you look at House of Cards, which was just beginning to start its newest and final season. Netflix had announced already that the final season was happening, and now they'll basically put all the pressure onto Robin Wright Penn to carry that show to the finish line. It's all completely unprecedented. It's all really weird, and I think this is just the beginning of all of this sort of spill out that we're going to see with these kinds of scenarios.
We've seen stuff like this happen before. Usually it's when an actor dies.
Yeah.
This happened with Heath Ledger is a good example. They were making the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, and they basically, Terry Gilliam is a weird enough director that he's like, let's replace him with eight of his friends. They all kind of joined in.
With Brandon Lee as well in The Crow.
Yeah.
And then shot his scenes with his brother after he was fatally shot on set by an accidental gun.
More recently, the night of, James Gandolfini was in like half of the episodes, and then they had to go in and replace him with, I always forget his name. John Turturro.
Yeah,
I don't know
James
why he's one of those
Gandolfini
things.
actually like shepherded that show for a very long time in the background at HBO, and then passed away, and they kept going with him.
Which is nuts. But
And you also look at something like AI, which is a movie that Steven Spielberg finished after Kubrick passed away,
Right.
and that turned into what it turned into, which is this weird, like just tentacle monster.
Well,
of a film.
I think the one thing that allows for this now is digital.
Yeah.
You know, they're not having to develop film. It's not a physical quantity, and I wouldn't surprise me that much if there are shots in All the Money in the World where you're looking at the back of Kevin Spacey as he's talking to Mark Wahlberg, but it's Christopher Plummer doing VO or something.
Yeah.
Like, I would not surprise me one bit if they did stuff like that, or kind of the the Grand Moff Tarkin thing you saw in Rogue One, but you know, obviously with a living person.
And so the weird thing, I was saying this to you the other day, I'm really fascinated in these two stories. One, how the House of Cards scenario is handled after Kevin Spacey's departure, because they're not even going to have him, I assume, come in and shoot scenes where like they shoot him in the back of the head or something. I imagine they're going to kill off that character, and I don't know how they're going to do it. And two, how Episode 9 is going to handle the death of Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, because for all we know, she survives to the end of 8, according to John Boyega in interviews, which means that both of these things are very weird situations, and we have to watch them unfold over the next few years, because these businesses will keep trucking on despite the life and death of the stars within them. So yeah, keep it locked, because it's about to get crazy.
Yeah. If you'd like another story about speculative casting, check out a bunch of actors who were almost in the X-Men movies, and if you want to hear more about Ridley Scott, he produced Blade Runner 2049, which ruled. Hear us talk about it right here on Up at Noon.